Everyone. Thanks for joining us today for a Fruition Partners and Connective webinar entitled Modernizing Healthcare Technology Management. Today's webinar is being recorded, so if you have to jump off early for any reason, you'll be able to watch a recording of the webinar, which will be shared sometime next week. Here's a look at today's presenters. If you're in the healthcare industry, then you're definitely in for a real treat. Both Rob and Tommy started Connective only after spending several years at ServiceNow. So they definitely understand the demands, struggles, and possibilities with healthcare technology management. Rob, if you could just say hi real quick to everybody.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Great. Tommy, if you could do the same.
Good morning.
Cool. And of course, we have Fruition Partners' very own Patrick Stonelake on hand to talk about the importance of Connective and how Fruition Partners App Factory can enable and support these types of platform solutions. So Patrick, if you could just say what's up real quick.
Hi, everybody.
Great. And I do want to point out that Tommy will be doing a live demo today, so definitely stick around for that since it's going to be more than just a cursory view of the solution. When it comes to webinar participation, we want you to be active. So when a question comes to mind, go ahead and enter it in the question box in the GoToWebinar panel. I'll do my best to pose it to our presenters at the right time. We also have 2 poll questions today. We'll be launching polls on the slides that have a poll icon in the upper right corner. So be on the lookout for those. Worth mentioning that poll results will be shared in real time. And last but not least, if you have any comments or questions during or after the webinar, you can also tweet at us using the hashtag up on the screen. So with that said, I'm going to pass it to Patrick, who will give everybody on a quick introduction of Fruition Partners and Connective.
So hi, everybody. If you're not familiar with Fruition, we are actually an 11-year-old company at this point. I'm one of the founders of the company, the other being our CEO, Mark Toludo. We have been in the business of service management for the enterprise, for large organizations, for higher education institutions. Any situation in which people have a lot of people to keep track of, a lot of assets to keep track of, and a lot of technology that interconnects the two. For the last 6 years or so, we have been working with a platform called ServiceNow. ServiceNow is actually how we got to be introduced to Rob and Tommy of Connective. It's been a very prosperous partnership for us. We have grown from about 12 or 13 employees when we found ServiceNow to just about 300 at this point, between North America, Canada, South America and Colombia, and Europe out of the UK. Over this time, we have done more than 1,500 enterprise workflow projects utilizing ServiceNow as a platform. We've had a bunch of customers go live with ServiceNow in order to manage their IT departments, and then about 25% of those customers have utilized ServiceNow to focus on work management within industries like healthcare, retail, etc. We're a fast-growing company, but we're growing very sustainably. We've been on the Inc. 5000 list 2 years in a row, and we were very glad to be named the Inner City 100, the top of that list for our business headquartered out of Chicago here. We know ServiceNow very well, but we're particularly interested in ServiceNow as a platform for delivering workflow management to big organizations. And you can see down there in the lower left that we've developed over 100 different integrations between ServiceNow and business management and IT operations management software. We finally also just had our 2nd annual FruDevCon, which is the ServiceNow Developers Conference. So I mention all this to say that what we are is a large yet growing yet focused service management consulting company, and we use this platform ServiceNow and all of its various capabilities to help people make their work more efficient. So I wanted to take a second to introduce, I'm going to throw it to Rob Woodburn. Rob, I have known for most of those 6 years that we've been working with ServiceNow. As Mike mentioned, Rob and Tommy had been working with ServiceNow to help solve these workflow management problems for big enterprises. Rob had left ServiceNow and kind of ended his journey at ServiceNow to start a new one, and we've been communicating since that happened. And we've been really enthusiastic about getting Fruition involved in the work that they're doing with the new venture, Connective. So I wanted to introduce Rob. Rob, I'll throw it to you right now, and you can tell us a little bit more about Connective and what you do for healthcare technology management.
Great, thank you, Patrick. So I'll give you guys try to keep a brief overview of how Connective came about, where we kind of got the idea for it, and then why it's important, to be here with companies like Fruition and ServiceNow. Why these are the companies that are really helping us as Connective go out there and really transform the way that healthcare technology management's being offered and how that industry is being served today. Because it was, when we looked at it, when we first got introduced to it, we could tell that it was something that just needed to be modernized using tools like this. So, the notion for Connective came about just about a year ago when Tommy Lee was still an employee at ServiceNow, and he was working with one of ServiceNow's customers in the healthcare industry, and working with a gentleman named Chris Bailey. And so Chris had been approached by part of his business saying, hey, listen, we noticed that there's this really great platform in IT that they're using to solve some of their problems. Hey, Chris, can you help us over here in clinical engineering on our biomed team? Can you help us look at some of these tools that we're using? They're just old, they don't work well, we can't get metrics out of them, they're just really hard to use, and it looks like what you have over there might be able to help us solve some of our problems. And at the time, Chris took a look at it and goes, yeah, heck yeah, with ServiceNow I could definitely help you guys solve some of those problems. And so collaborating with Tommy Lee, Chris built a prototype and went and showed it to that biomed team, and they were blown away by the functionality that Chris was able to do in a short amount of time to help bring them real value and transform the way they were running their business. Well, not only was Chris able to do that, he collaborated with Tommy. They kind of said, hey, listen, as ServiceNow starts moving in this direction of trying to say, hey, we build apps for your business on our platform, and then let's go and help other parts of the business that are underserved, how can we help with that? And so this was one of those ideas, and so what they did is kind of productized it. Chris was actually nominated. He was on stage at Knowledge 14 this year as a finalist in the Innovation of the Year for that application he built at his healthcare organization. And then what they also did is Tommy internally within ServiceNow took this out and started exposing it to other healthcare customers of ServiceNow. In fact, they did some roundtables, they did some lunch and learns, and over again, there's just a lot of interest in saying, hey, that's great. We want you to come in and talk to our biomed team or our clinical engineering team. They could really utilize something like that. And then from that grew into Tommy going to his management and saying, guys, I'm passionate about this. I've been running around. Me and Chris have been doing these healthcare demos. I would like to shift my focus at ServiceNow and really go and attack this vertical and verticalize and really go after this healthcare technology management application internally. And when I think of it, and fortuitous for us, I think it was absolutely the right call. ServiceNow told Tommy that, hey, listen, we love it, great idea, but what we really have to do as ServiceNow is stay focused on what we do and empower our partners to go and be the subject matter experts, to focus on industries, to create solutions for those industries, and then to continuously improve them and stay connected. And so Tommy took that to heart, and we'd been talking, and he was telling me, he's like, man, I think I'm going to go and resign and talk to my management and say, hey, I kind of want to go and be that partner. And obviously with them making sure he really wanted to leave, his management gave Tommy their blessing to say, yeah, go ahead, we'll miss you, but go out there and go and do this. And so about this summer, about August timeframe, Tommy went ahead and resigned from ServiceNow, and he called me up, and we launched Connective. And so we launched Connective, and then the very first phone call we made was to that gentleman, Chris Bailey, and said, Chris, you got to get over here. We're going to go and do this. And so, Chris also made that leap of faith and joined us as our very first employee, and within about 3 months' time, we rebuilt from scratch the biomed healthcare technology management application as a ServiceNow partner. and brought it to market. So in a very short amount of time, we launched a company, brought a product to market, and then have gone off and, you know, we're closing in on getting our first few initial customers in and using it in a way where we'll be able to call them customers, and they'll be able to go and utilize this and change the way that they're doing healthcare technology management. So go ahead and move on to the next slide. Oh wait, hold on, this is it, the who we are one. So who are the people that started this off? First of all, I've introduced myself and Tommy, and I've mentioned Chris Bailey. He's the 16-year veteran from the healthcare technology management space. And then we have some other old friends that joined us from ServiceNow, which are, you know, desperately needed to come in here and help us, you know, build a company that's young, do it successfully. Guys like Andy Shedrick, Matt Holitz, and Andres D'Ambrosi. These are guys that are helping us on a daily basis go out there and make sure that as we build these products, that we're able to deliver them and do it in a way that's going to be viable. And with that being said, it couldn't be done without partners like ServiceNow and Fruition, right? We need to be able to go out there and not only have a platform that's stable, that's secure, that we can go to this market with, but we also have to be able to go out there and be able to deliver, right? When we're going to go in there and assure these customers, these large healthcare organizations, that not only can we build great products for them, but we can deliver them and train them. Fruition's the company that's going to help us do that. So what do? We do, and the only thing that we do is develop cloud-based healthcare applications. You know, we use a modern cloud-based service that most of you are familiar with, and what that helps these organizations do is easily manage, analyze, and report on the devices and the technologies that they're invested in. From an IT service management perspective, that sounds pretty simple, right? That's what those organizations do. But this is a changing dynamic for healthcare and biomed teams, because most of these devices that we're talking about were things that previously didn't used to have IP addresses. So as they become online and as the technology modernizes, they're looking for new and better ways to be able to manage these things. Going to go on to the next slide. Oh, and by the way, we have a poll here. So here's the poll where we wanted to ask, like, what are the solutions you're using today? And Mike, if you want to just kind of give an overview of what the poll question is, I'll step back.
Perfect. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, thanks for setting that up. So yeah, our first of two poll questions today. This first one's just a little bit of a warm-up to get your poll juices flowing. So the first question asks, what biomed CMMS solution is your organization currently using? So I'm going to go ahead and launch that right now to everybody. So you should see a pop-up on your screen. So please go ahead, vote as you see fit. Options are Phoenix Data Systems, Mainspring St. Croix, Four Rivers TMS, other I don't know. And we realize there's probably some people on the webinar who aren't in healthcare or biomed. So you're probably wondering which one to choose. You could just probably select I don't know. So we'll give everybody about 7 more seconds to vote, close the poll, and share the results.
Cool. Now,
5. Yep.
Oh, go ahead.
I was doing my famous countdown. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So we'll go ahead and close. And here are the results. So again, the question was, what biomed CMMS solution is your organization currently using? 8% said Phoenix Data Systems, 0% Mainspring, 8% Four Rivers TMS, 15% other, and then 69% said I don't know. So I imagine there's a bunch of folks out there who are in healthcare or biomed who selected I don't know. But appreciate everybody voting. We had over half of you vote, so thank you.
All right.
I'll go ahead and hide those and pass it back to you, Rob.
All right, cool. So real quickly before I move on from this slide, so one of the, like as you go through this process and some of the lessons learned, and and again going back to ServiceNow really I think making the right call when they said, hey, we got to rely on our partners to do this. Especially with mine and Tommy's background, what we notice is that when we would go out there, yeah, ServiceNow is a platform that could definitely serve this space well and is light years beyond what those other tools are able to provide for these organizations. But the problem is we didn't know what we were talking about, and we didn't know what they were talking about. So as we've gone out there and we've had these conversations and we've been in this industry, we realized very quickly that we need to understand and live in their world and solve their problems and know what their problems are. So when we started building out our application, it was purpose-built, right? We went out there and we said, this is a changing industry. So when we talk about the industrial internet, right, there's great advancements that are coming, but with those things, there's risks that are coming, especially in healthcare. People can hack into pacemakers, which could cause all kinds of problems. How do we update firmware? How do we know what stuff's online? How do we know what stuff is vulnerable? And as the regulatory requirements start coming out that's going to have to deal with this, we have to, as a technology company, be ahead of the curve, and we have to be able to help these organizations feel confident that not only is the solution that we're providing going to help them manage their business and be on top of things and create better efficiencies, we also have to make sure that we're going to be ahead of the regulatory requirements and that we're going to help them meet those requirements. Also, we want to be able to give them visibility into how their devices are being used. There's a gentleman at Fruition, a guy named Thad that I've talked to in the past, and he came from the healthcare industry, and he goes, you don't know how many people I talk to where they say, hey, listen, all right, help me solve this problem. We have 180 beds in our facility, and I have 350 fusion pumps. Why in the world do I have 350 fusion pumps if I only have 180 beds? And it's a question that comes down to being able to track utilization, being able to know if you've done preventive maintenance on these devices, and then being able to find them when the team that needs them is looking for them. So what we want to do as Connective is we want to create visibility into where those things are, help it be easier to define which devices have had the right maintenance steps done to them, which ones have alerts coming in from different systems, and instead of making this a manual swivel chair process of saying, okay, I got an alert that came in from such and such vendor, now I have to go and turn around into another system and go and try to find where that stuff is and hope that it's actually there and all that stuff. What we want to do is to automate these things, automate these processes with workflow and integrations in a cloud-based environment that not only allow them to be able to get that visibility, but then to also track and optimize their spending, right? If they're able to go into and get this information, then what we can do is help them track their costs. So go on to the next slide. All right. So what we've decided to do is say, hey, listen, these solutions that they currently have, there's no way it's one size fits all. There's no everybody gets exactly the same thing, and they basically have to shift their processes to meet these rudimentary tools. Well, that's great, and that was great at a moment in time, and that was in the early 90s, right? Back in the early 90s, you know, if you wanted a cup of coffee, you had Folgers. That's what you went with. Why was Starbucks so successful if everybody had Folgers in their cabinets in the morning? The reason why it's because it's a place that you can go, and I'll tell you right now, I like Red Eyes, and that Frappuccino thing behind that cup of coffee, they taste nothing alike, but it's still coffee. But you can go to Starbucks and you have choices, and I could walk in there with my wife, and we can both get what we want, and we enjoy the experience. Same thing with your iPhones. The black iPhone, that's mine. The white one, that's my wife's. It's like what we can do is we can go and say, back when we had that BlackBerry, everybody had one game. You had the rolling trackball, and you either had that street on your screen, or you had that Visual Moto kind of crazy blue swirling thing. But that was it. They made calls, and they sent texts, and they answered emails. Well, today the iPhone still does those things, but as you can see, it's customized and it's personalized for your user experience. The apps that she has are not the same apps that I have, yet they're both iPhones. Well, that's the way that these platforms should work. So going to go on the next slide. So what we've decided to do is say, hey, listen, let's modernize the way that this industry is being served by providing them the tools that they need in a configurable environment that let them use them the way that they operate within their business, and give them the flexibility to grow and deliver this service in a way that lets their users use it the way that they want to use that. And we know that people want to use mobile devices as much as possible. So of course it works in the browser and on your computer, but we really want, and when we build our connective applications, they're really built with mobile first in mind so that you can use them from your phones and from your iPads or Android devices. All right, next slide. So this slide's this is talking about how things come into the organization, right? So when you're working in healthcare or biomed, when something breaks on the floor, it's going to go into one of three queues, right? But which one? And what happens if it goes into the wrong one? How does it get handed off, from facilities back to clinical engineering, or from clinical engineering to IT? What we want to do is create better visibility by making that these processes simple and making it so that the end user has the ability not only to get into the right queue to begin with, but let's say something ends up in the wrong queue, let's make it easy to transfer it over to the other queue. So we want to have all these groups working together, and then eventually, as all this information is working together and all being tracked in processes and workflows that are correct for that organization, what it can do is then roll up to the bigger picture, which is providing insight to the materials management or your supply chain management to be able to give them the analytics to make better financial decisions because they could see where their cost and their spend is really going. Therefore, it empowers the organization to be able to better optimize the resources that they have. And go ahead and go to the next slide.
Yeah, hey Rob, Mike here again.
One more poll,
Just going to interject, last poll of the day, our second poll question. Figured this was a good slide to launch it on. So our last poll asks, if you are a healthcare provider, how effectively do your departments work together? And I'm going to go ahead and launch that right now. And when we say departments, departments of interest are clinical engineering, IT, and facilities. So take some time to respond to the poll. We'll give everybody 10 seconds.
And Pete, while you guys are responding to the poll, I'll point out that that Patrick and I have been working with each other for a while when he's reminding me on private chat to hurry up because I'm taking too long on my slides. So, Tommy, it's not just you.
It was good. We got to get to that demo,
All right, we'll go ahead and close the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, here are the results. Again, the question was, if you are a healthcare provider, how effectively do your departments work together? 0% said very effectively, 30% said somewhat effectively, 30% said not effectively, and 40% said, I don't know. We had about half of you vote. So again, thanks to everybody for participating in today's polls. Rob, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Rob.
All right, thanks. And I'm almost done. I think I got 2 more slides. Then we're going to jump into, I'll pass it back over to you, Patrick, and I'll be quick.
Yep, looks like the poll's still up. Let's go ahead and hide the results. Great.
All right.
Thank
you. For us, this is really where it starts. This is not nice to haves. This is what every application has to have in a modern enterprise, right? It has to be able to integrate with the tools that you currently have. It has to be able to take data from your old tools and store it in this for regulatory requirements. These applications need to be being upgraded by the vendor on a regular basis without it going back to the customer and asking them for additional money to be able to get the latest and greatest version. They need to be accessible from home or from Starbucks or from your mobile devices with simple, clean user interfaces. They need to provide analytics out of the box. We shouldn't be going to crystal reports and business objects every time somebody wants a simple report. They should be doing it natively, and they should be configurable so that you can have the information you need depending on what your job is and how you want to work with that tool. And they definitely need to be scalable. So before we do anything, it's got to start with those things, and go ahead and go on to the next slide. And this is my last one before I'll pass it over. And it's, it's not because Fruition invited us to this call. When we go out and we talk to our prospects and our customers and our other partners, this is so paramount to Connective success and why we're here today. In the past, there's no way somebody could launch a company and get a product up and available to be consumed within 1 quarter. The reason why we're able to do that is because of outstanding technology partners like ServiceNow, right? To be able to have a partner where you can go and become a partner, use their application, build applications, and then take them to market in that amount of time, it's changing the way businesses are able to do business. And then more importantly is, okay, we can build great stuff, but if we can't deliver it, it's not going to do anybody any good. So partnering with Fruition, them helping us with process, with marketing, with training and consulting services, having them come along and mirror us on our implementations as they learn them so we can hand them over to them. It's just organizations that are able to partner with and provide those kind of resources and do it in a way that makes it easy to work with is just something that I can't express enough how awesome it is. So with that, Patrick, I'll turn it over to you.
So I'm going to do just a little bit of this is almost like a little commercial interruption here, but we are, to explain to the folks who may not be familiar with Connective or Fruition or how this works, what this healthcare application is a manifestation of what we call the app factory. As Rob mentioned, ServiceNow is really an excellent platform for the development of applications. Fruition has built our reputation and our business on provision of services for customers that use ServiceNow as a workflow platform. So what you're seeing here is what we call the app factory concept. So Rob actually connected me to this story. There's a little brewing company, well actually it's quite large now, called Stone Brewing in North County, San Diego. I enjoy their products. Some of you may as well. But the thing that's really interesting about Stone Brewing and that story to me, as Rob told it, is that they were one of the first companies to really understand the microbrew revolution in San Diego, and quickly grew into an extremely large organization with a lot of infrastructure and a lot of capability to deliver large markets. You're looking there at a Stone Brewing facility, and it's pretty sophisticated. The kind of home brewing that people do kind of in their bathtubs or in their basements really can't compare to something like this. But the place where this story gets interesting is because Stone Brewing helped to found in 1997 the San Diego Brewers Guild. Their belief that the microbrewery ecosystem was going to benefit from a lot of creators, essentially not just having one or two brewers generating one or two beers per season, but enabling an entire community to create interesting and most importantly specific products. They founded this Brewers Guild to help local brewers kind of focus on what exactly it was that they were interested in. So essentially that's what happened with App Factory. We have creators like Rob and Tommy and Chris, and we have the ability to deliver this to customers at scale, which is represented by Fruition. So when we go through a process of designing an application, you're looking at the 6 channels of thought there. There's the design, develop part, there's the certification part. This is where we make sure it works well with the ServiceNow platform and it delivers well. Then we've got to get it out there and help people whose problems can be solved by the application to find it. And then Fruition does the work of implementing the software, making sure that it is aligned with internal processes, and then of course supporting it. So if you want to change something, if you want a new report, or if you just need somebody to call, you can call Fruition. You don't have to call Rob and Tommy and Chris, although I'm sure they'd love to answer the phone. Three people probably don't have that much capability to answer the phone. So when we work with Connective, this is how it works. The purple boxes are the Connective folks, and this is the work that they do and have done, keeping them kind of in their areas of expertise. So these guys are actually ServiceNow experts, so we didn't have to provide that skill within Fruition. And we get to the handoff in terms of, once somebody has decided they like the application and they're interested in checking it out, then we get to work and make sure that we can deploy it, on time, on budget, and with an ongoing support that's rock solid afterwards. Some other folks who are looking at this, and actually maybe some of the attendees of the webinar might say, well, I'm not a ServiceNow expert, and that's okay. Not a lot of people are, but if you're not, and you are a subject matter expert and you have the use cases, the business models, you know how to solve problems for customers, but you don't know how to develop, well, we can do that too. So that's essentially what this App Factory is intended to do. So I will return from my commercial message. If you have any questions about that, you can certainly reach out to us afterward. So Rob, you can explain a little bit about and lead us up to the demo about how you're using this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to try to get through these really fast. So sorry for kind of truncating the remaining part of these slides. I'm sure you guys are really bummed about that. But really what we want to do at Connective is, obviously it starts with our customers, but, from the conversations we've had, from the roundtables we've attended and talked to, what's really become apparent is that there's a big need and a big ask in this healthcare technology management space around community. They want to be able to collaborate with their peers, and they want to be able to get ideas of what other people are doing and best practices and things, so they don't have to feel like they're recreating the wheel in their environment time and time again as these new technologies are being introduced into their workspace. So, as Connective, what we're really trying to do is say, okay, first of all, we take care of customers, number one, but why don't we try to keep community and industry in mind? So as we collect this information and as we help these people solve the problems, how can we stay focused on making sure that these are not going to be just answers that are lost within a company that's trying to provide a solution to sell people. We want to make sure that they're being brought back out to the community, that we're trying to help them connect with each other, and we bring metrics up to them to be able to make better decisions, not only from a healthcare institution standpoint, but also those vendors, all those vendors that make these devices and do these things, they would love to have access to this information too, because they are really trying to do the same thing, right? This is an industry that's passionate about helping people, and these people that make these devices, and if they have more metrics and better metrics about how they're performing, it's only going to help them get better at what they're doing as well too. So the last slide that I'm going to talk to is just it just goes to how we deliver our service, and it's, you know, this is the slide where we say it's simple, so we want to simplify, we want to deliver, and then we want to go on and improve these organizations that do business with us. So it's a subscription-based pricing model that is simple. It's an annual cost based on the size of your organization. There's going to be regular releases and enhancements that are included. It's the ServiceNow model. Implementations, standard, fixed fee deployments, working with Fruition to provide that expertise and make sure these things are done right and done on time. We have training included with the implementation, and then we have an a la carte menu of a bunch of other services that are provided by Fruition, things from organizational change management to additional training and education services. And then support. We support our application on an ongoing basis to answer questions. It's included with the price. You don't have to pay maintenance. And then what we also do is, partnering with Fruition, offer advanced remote admin capabilities if you want to hand that off to somebody else. So with that, let me turn it over to Tommy and let him get into the really cool stuff.
Great. Thanks, Rob. So yes, it's demo time. I'm sure a lot of you have been waiting for this segment of the webinar. So I'm going to go ahead and change presenter to Tommy for a live walkthrough of the solution.
All right. Go ahead and show my screen here. Let me know when it's showing up for everyone.
We got it.
Yep.
All right. Perfect. So to walk through the application here, you know, I'm going to talk a little bit about the ServiceNow platform and some of the core capabilities along the way, and that may be review for those who are very familiar with the platform, but I want to point them out because they're going to be very useful for those who aren't familiar with the ServiceNow platform in depth. So with the Biomed or Healthcare Technology Management application, you know, the key to it is you know, targeting initially the CMMS tools that many of the organizations are using. However, you know, not only do we want to do you know, computerized management and maintenance, but we also really want to take it up to the level of providing reports and analytics and metrics that the biomed or clinical engineering teams can use, and also up to the materials management, performance, and quality groups can utilize some of these metrics and analytics as well. So just very, very quickly here, you can see you know, one sample dashboard. You have the ability to create as many of these types of dashboards, and users then have the capability to, you know, drag and drop these particular elements around. But what you'll notice is, you know, it's giving you information at a glance that's relevant to your particular work and your particular interests and needs. At the very, very top, an asset manager may want to keep their eye on contracts that are nearing expiration. And so very quickly, they can not only see that, but at the very right is an interesting little bullet graph there that you'll see that what it does is takes a lot of the underlying costs, and these are cost metrics and cost numbers. That's data that we collect along the way as work is being performed. And if it's deemed that it's contract-based work, we then are able to apply, you know, your organization's, for example, hourly rate or parts costs or whatever it might be, and we're able to track that along so that as the life of the contract goes, you can see the percentage of value attained. And so this gives you ammunition when you go back to your vendors and whoever you're dealing with these contracts to say, hey, you know what? I know we were paying X amount of dollars for the last contract, but when we're renewing it, we really don't think that we need to pay that much, and this is why. And of course, to get those type of numbers, you need a lot of underlying data, which I'll show you as I get further into the demo. All right. One thing I did forget to kind of kick off with is if you do have any questions, you know, feel free to pose them in the interface, and then you know, Mike will go ahead and interrupt me, and then I'll go ahead and answer the questions. All right. But if we move further down here in the dashboard, again, you have all these different reports that show breakdowns and different slices and perspectives of the data that you have within the system. And what's really, really nice about ServiceNow's platform is that these reports are very, very easy to make. So you no longer have to, when evaluating a product, say, ask how many canned reports does it come with? For example, let me jump into this Biomed assets by category manufacturer. And what you'll see very quickly is a very clean type of reporting interface. So here's my graph at the bottom, and I can very quickly, deselect things, and it'll go ahead and clean them up. But at the very top, this is the definition. There's no complex SQL. There's no exporting to Crystal reports or business objects. It's all done within the tool. And so you can get operational type of reports, which is, here's my data in its current state. Let me generate the report. Or I can also get trending or performance analytics. So just to show some examples, maybe I want to trend the number of lost Biomed assets on a monthly basis. Well, I can very, very quickly do that using the performance analytics offering and create these dashboards to show, again, any type of perspective against the data that I want that's relevant to my organization. All right, so that's the reporting and the analytics capability. Let's talk a little bit about, first off, how do we get this data in when you're talking about imports? I'm not going to go into technical detail here, but what I just want to show is that ServiceNow has that capability to bring in the data from any previous solution. Simple exercise of load the data, create a mapping that maps the old data to the new, and then run it. And any type of cleanup, small minor cleanup can also occur in this particular import. And that's the capability we have for bringing that data in. And so it's very, very easy to do so. So no worrying about having to type in manually all this data or recreate it manually. All right, so let's now jump into kind of the core data that makes up a lot of these reports that you saw and a lot of the analytics that you just saw. So what we have is assets, work orders, contracts, and a number of elements tied to those particular elements. And so what you have here, let's go ahead and start at the assets, is a hierarchy of categories, models, and equipment. And as Rob mentioned, we try to integrate to many different things, not only your organization's tools, but also industry standard vendors and organizations. So for example, ECRI or ECRI is a nonprofit organization that provides something called SourceBase, which is like a dictionary for categories for medical devices. And here we can see that we're tracking both ECRI codes as well as internal categorizations. And these categorizations can house a number of different models and equipment. And what's nice is if I go ahead and look at maybe microscopes here, this is a form where I can very quickly see all the different assets that fall under this particular asset category. So I can drill into these layers of data very, very quickly. Now, if I go into the equipment, what I want to show is this is an asset record. Here I have a list, and what's nice about these lists is they're very, very easily filterable. So, for example, if I don't care about retired equipment, I can right-click, filter it out, and maybe let's go back to that microscope category. Got my category here, right-click, say show matching, and so I've got all non-retired microscopes here on my list, and filtered out very, very quickly. Now from here, I can very quickly right-click, create a report on the fly, or export things out very, very quickly, so maybe I can send it off via email to someone. But what I can also do here is modify things very, very quickly. So for example, maybe these 3 lost microscopes, I found them. So I want to change them from lost to back in stock. And just by highlighting those, I can very quickly modify multiple records on the fly, all with very, very little effort. All right. So that capability to be able to modify asset states, to modify descriptions, to assign work out to people, I can do that very quickly in these type of list views. But let's now jump directly into a particular asset record. And at the very top, you'll see, yep, I've got all the standard fields that you would expect in attributes. But down below, what you'll see is some interesting things. So I'm not going to go through in detail on every single one of them, but what I want to point out is, we're able to keep track of things like the risk tied to a particular asset. We can detect things like what the non-contract or contract-based costs are, any type of depreciation formula that you may have, any maintenance, if this is a counter-based type of item where you have to record mileage or hours that something is running, we can record those readings. And of course, as important with any regulated industry, you need to be able to record history. So we can record date time stamps as well as history for people changing certain elements of certain attributes. So that's all inherently there. There's nothing we need to do special to enable the historical audit. But something I do want to point out that, again, trying to take things to the next level for analytics, a common thing that we ran across was organizations saying, how do I get better visibility in terms of viewing how often I should be refreshing my equipment? And that is obviously based on the age. So what we built was an age analytics type of charting capability where, based on things like when I'm entering part transactions or when I'm entering time cards against a particular asset, it's recording all these costs. And what we can do is take snapshots as an asset ages to view the cost. So here, you'll see the age cost analytics, and we can very quickly hover over to see the breakdown of parts cost, labor cost, total cost. And what's nice is I can very quickly, highlight certain ones or take them out, and it's just really, really nice. And these type of individual asset snapshots are then driven collectively up that hierarchy I talked about, up to the category. So I can go back to my microscope category that houses all the microscope assets, and I've got that same capability where I can look at the average age cost, and it's going to show me the numbers breaking down by year. So again, it's giving you better visibility so you can make better decision as to when this particular graph starts to hockey stick. So maybe year 4 is when we decide, microscopes have a 4-year lifespan, hopefully not that short, but it has a 4-year lifespan, and this is when we should probably start replacing these pieces of equipment. All right. So let's go ahead and jump back here. Now, when we're talking about generating work orders against these particular assets, we have the ability to schedule things on a time basis as well as on a counter basis. So if I go over to this GE event 201 time basis, every 6 months we're creating work orders, and what you'll see is I can target any assets that I want using this filter that you see down below, but it's also going to tell me which assets that it's going to pertain to. And what I can also assign to it, which is really, really helpful for the technicians, is a PM procedure or a group of them tied together. So if I go ahead and click on Preview PM Procedure, you'll see plain text here. And this may be similar to what many of you, if you're in a healthcare industry or using a CMMS tool, are used to seeing with these particular type of PM procedures or preventive maintenance procedures. However, we can take that to the next level and provide a very, very content-rich, media-rich type of articles. So here I no longer have just plain text. I also have images. I can embed video. And this has really resonated with providers because they say, wow, this is, especially when we have new technicians, we don't always have to be walking them through or waiting for them to get up to speed. We can provide these type of instructional videos so they can get up to speed much, much quicker. And as Rob mentioned, we try to make things mobile friendly and targeting the need for the workforce to be mobile. So if I jump over to my mobile emulator here, you can see here's that very same article rendered on the mobile device. Nothing special I need to do. I don't need to create it twice or anything like that. I create it in one place, and it automatically converts it into a mobile friendly view.
Tommy.
Yeah.
I wanted to point out a couple of questions that came in from the audience. They might be relevant, so I'll just throw them both out at you, and then you could choose to answer them when you feel it's a good time. So the first one comes in and says, are you planning to integrate with Discovery's tools to find better biomed-like equipment? And then the second one is sort of along the same lines. Well, kind of. It says, any plans to use proximetry tools for location status of biomed equipment?
Yeah, it was a great question. So the first one around discovery, we definitely looked into it. The issue is in the current state of medical devices, they don't really have they don't have standardized protocols or shells that you can connect to like you used to when discovering IT equipment. So you're really going to be dependent on some back-end things. So, but there are solutions like iSirona or some of these applications that are trying to be able to tie together a lot of these proprietary communication protocols. And so we can target those application databases to bring in that data, which would be equivalent to discovery. Now, in terms of RTLS, or real-time location services, we definitely have looked into integrating with those. We're actually investigating some kind of latest wave of technology for use of perhaps even building our own RTLS type of or proximity intelligence solutions. So if those solutions are available in-house and are being used to track assets, we absolutely want to work with you to be able to build that interface out in the deployment. And eventually productize it, of course. All right. So Rob, any other questions, or is that it for now?
That's it.
Okay, perfect. Let's go ahead and move forward here. Within here, again, if you have any questions, go ahead and just post them, and Rob will interrupt me. So within these PM schedules, you can see the work orders that'll get generated. Some other ways that we can generate work orders: safety alerting. So I mentioned ECRI source space. Safety alerting, for those who are not familiar with it, who may be outside the space, think of it, I have a heating unit and I got a recall from the manufacturer that I need to send it back to get it fixed because there's risk of fire. These are essentially safety alerts equivalent to that coming from a source like ECRI Alerts Tracker, some aggregate source, or directly from manufacturers saying there's an issue with medical device or a particular piece of equipment. You need to go ahead and take some type of action against it. So we're collecting these safety alerts, and what we can do is, let me just search on Medtronic here. Maybe I've got this Paradigm infusion pump that's got some type of issue. And so here it's giving me information about the alert, but not only do I see information about the alert, but it's tying directly into that category number. And what I can do is, through that, I can automatically have the system bring up all the potentially affected assets, and then I can go ahead and initiate corrective action. So it's just telling me, okay, you're going to go ahead and create a bunch of work orders, one per asset, and they've been created. Now I have a parent work order tying them together. So directly from this alert, I can track at this parent the progress of the children, one deployed for each affected asset. And so we're taking what's typically a swivel chair process and we're tying it all together through the safety alerting functionality to provide higher levels of automation. Right, and RTLS is definitely part of this vision. What we want to do is, when we have these safety alerts, to be able to say, not only do you have to target these assets, but this is where the last known location of these assets are. Again, making more efficient use of the technician's time, so they don't have to go searching all around the hospitals and facilities for these items.
And Tommy, one more question: what is for some of the partners out there, what is the end user role within the healthcare organization that would be using the connective applications?
Yeah, great transition. So the end user roles really are going to be, targeting, at least for this healthcare technology management app, really going to be targeting the clinicians and really anyone who's going to be utilizing the equipment. So for example, if a clinician encounters a device that's malfunctioning, they can go ahead and access the request catalog. And so this may be the perspective that they see, where they can go ahead and search it on the request catalog. And they can go ahead and define, okay, for some reason this clinician is using microscope 5000. This repair is not critical, it's normal. And maybe we say the LED backlight is burned out. They can then go ahead and submit these requests for equipment repair. There's also the ability, if for somehow they got their hands on like some type of recall, maybe it's a piece of mail or an email or from a website, there's also in the request catalog the ability to enter those type of requests in. Or if they feel that there's something that needs to be ordered, a new infusion pump, a new whatever, there's also the ability for them to go through the catalog to order those items. All right. Any other questions, Rob? Or? Okay. Let's go ahead and move forward with the work order. So I've got these work orders that are created, and as a dispatcher, right, there is a option here. Again, this is just a filtered list, but I can target the pending dispatch list of work orders. And so you'll see some of those work orders I created, so the recalls, the corrective maintenance. So if you have a dispatch unit, they can go ahead and come into this list of work orders pending dispatch, and again, very quickly just click on these cells and assign it to a particular individual or technician. What we also want to do, though, is be able to target based on qualification. So, for example, this may be a piece of work that belongs to the biomed technicians. So go ahead and save this. And based on this particular group, we can actually develop user experience or technician qualification scoring. If I go ahead and pull this up, I can go ahead and bring up this type of graph that shows, based on this type of work and some type of scoring, I can see who may be the most qualified, but in addition to that, I can also see their current workload. So in this case, it looks like, well, Chris is very qualified, but he's also very busy. Looks like Tommy's also qualified, but he's not quite as busy. So I can go ahead and click on this, and it'll then assign it to my particular user. All right. So
Tommy,
that's something that's, yep, go ahead.
You have me way overqualified there, just so you know.
Yeah. Thanks. Hey, Chuck. I was trying to make it look better. All right, so if we go in here and it's assigned to now my particular user as a technician, some other things you'll note is that we can flag things such as when an asset is under contract, we can notify people, again, reducing waste. So we don't want people performing work or contracting work for devices that are already under warranty or under a maintenance contract. So that's what that is intended to do. And if we go to the bottom, again, we can very quickly, track things such as, hey, I'm working on this device. It looks like the LED backlight's burned out. Let me go ahead and select a part that I need. So I can go ahead and select, in this case, I know it's an optical microscope, and it needs a new LED backlight. And directly from here, I can track inventory. And we do have inventory management type of functionality, such as reordering things when they hit a certain threshold or when you run out. But in this case, I'm seeing in my facilities who has what amount where. Let's go ahead and order from Northstar. I can also mark whether something is under contract. And so perhaps this is something that I want to put under the optical microscope standard 1-year maintenance contract. So go ahead and select those and submit them. And what you'll see at the very bottom then, I'm tracking those part transactions. There it is for this particular work order, but it also rolls it up again to the asset. So when you report against the asset and run analytics against them, you can get the full picture in near real time. All right. Now, when technicians are working on these, they also have the ability, let me jump back to my list, and let's go ahead and target one of these, and I'm just going to go ahead and change who it's assigned to. It's Tommy Lee. I'll jump directly in here. As I showed you earlier, there is the ability to be able to, and that's because I'm the wrong asset here. So there's the ability to be able to view the preventative maintenance procedure. And let me go ahead and target the correct one here that I had set up. So you can target a particular asset and then know what steps to actually run against that particular device. So if I go ahead and take a look here at this preventive maintenance that was generated, I'll go ahead and assign it to myself. You can see at the bottom, it's not showing up now, but what we have the ability to do, I'll show it to you in the mobile device. What we have is the ability to view a particular set of instructions, but in addition to that, I can incorporate tests. So if I'm recording the condition of that particular asset, or if I'm recording voltage readings or amperage readings, I can record that all within here, all within the same set of steps that I just saw earlier, and I can go ahead and save my progress as this particular work is being done. And again, bringing it back to automation, when there's test equipment calibration failures, when there's equipment testing failures, we want to take those failures and automatically remediate them by creating a corrective maintenance to fix those pieces of equipment. And in the case where you might have faulty test equipment, we also have things built in such as go back to the last time this particular test equipment was successfully calibrated, and you'll have to then redo all the work that that particular test equipment was involved in because we simply can't trust the results. All that automation is built into the workflows and the business rules that we have with this application. All right. So that's the overview. The last thing that I'll bring up is, we can also build according to requirements, nifty little things such as, hey, I want to be able to track when my technicians check in and check out. So this is a simple page that simply tracks, what particular clinic that they're working in that day. And what that does for the dispatcher is they can go back to their dispatch homepage and then very quickly see who is where and who's in and out and what their contact information is for the day. And again, all those capabilities are available on mobile. So I can jump here to that same check and check out. You'll see it just renders nicely. It's not all kind of out of whack in terms of proportions. And I can very quickly select where I'm going to be working today. Might be that one there. And check out, or check in rather. All right, so that's an overview. Hopefully you have a great idea of not only the capabilities of automation, but hopefully it resonated in terms of how your organization may be doing computerized maintenance and management today with the devices within your organization, and how we as Connective are trying to take it to the next level when it comes to getting the most out of your data so that we can generate reports and analytics for you to get better visibility so you can make better decisions. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over back to Mike.
Great. Thanks, Tommy. That was awesome. So yeah, we're sitting at 11:58. We're going to go ahead and close things out. Show my screen here, our closeout slide. So I just want to say thanks to everybody out there who joined us today. Special thanks to Connective as well for sharing their insight and expertise. I know we had a couple questions come in during the webinar that we weren't able to get to, so we'll follow up with you personally after the webinar. My buddy Patrick wants to say a couple quick things here.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody for attending. Thank you, Connective, for sharing. We're really excited about going and sharing this functionality and these benefits with some of our customers and some of our joint customers. If anybody's in attendance who thinks that they might be a future Connective, in other words, if you've got yourself the subject matter expertise in something like healthcare and you're interested in taking the ride with us to bring this to customers and really create value at a huge scale, go ahead and reach out to me personally. My email is p, as in Patrick, @fruitionpartners, all one word, .com. I'd be happy to hear from you. I think that's all we got. So if you have any additional questions, please follow up with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Additional questions, more in-depth demo, anything, reach out to us. Contact info is up on the screen. And just one last reminder, the webinar was recorded, so we'll be sharing that with you next week along with the PDF of the deck. So that's it. Thank you, everybody.